My name is Vanessa Pesic, and I'm with the Northeast Ohio Gas Accountability Project. We've been working with communities for a number of years regarding oil and gas well leasing. During this time, I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the information that you need to understand regarding the regulations of oil and gas. First of all, I'd like to clarify, while they have been hydraulically fracturing wells, the new shale drilling, the unconventional shale drilling, which is high volume horizontal fracturing, is very much more recent, maybe 10 or 15 years. That has been, as Mike or Tom said, only one well currently in Ohio, and that's what you're hearing a lot about. So don't be fooled that it's been going on for 40, 50, or 60 years, but rather this is a very new process, and the process that you're hearing about that is controversial. What we're hearing from ODNR is that the resuscitation of the regulations, the book of 1509, that somehow if the words on the page are sufficient, and if everything goes precisely as planned, and if all the companies perform perfectly and honestly, and if there is no human or mechanical error, then there is minimal risk. But since this is a real world, this is not how oil and gas development actually proceeds. During the first topic of regulation, ODNR's regulations are inadequate in some areas, especially with regard to the new horizontal shale drilling. They're now just trying to figure out how to interpret the regulations for this new type of unconventional drilling. There are major pieces of legislation that are also missing. SB 165 that was just passed, as was just mentioned, does have some positive changes, but also favors drillers in some areas. Our website, Neogap, neogap.org, has a document that lists some of the positives and negatives regarding this. It's really important for you to understand some of the changes to SB 165. We can't trust that all of the regulations will be followed. We've seen that in Ohio and throughout the country. Ohio is understaffed significantly in the number of inspectors that are available for the state. And this is something that we need to focus on carefully if we're going to expand drilling. And finally, we believe that there is a large conflict of interest. The people who are overseeing this entire process get all their revenue from the drilling, and that's how they're paid. So we feel that it is a broken system currently. It mirrors a situation at the federal level where we had the BP Gulf oil disaster, and I'm really terrified that this is happening here in Ohio. Why do we want to wait until something happens instead of being proactive? The rush to drill means that we're being reactive instead of being proactive. By being reactive, it may not be a sudden explosion, but rather a slow death as people's wells are poisoned, people get sick, and their livelihoods are ruined. It's happening all over the country, and it's time for Ohio to wake up and take the necessary precautions. And an example, injection wells have very stringent site requirements. Their area of view is larger, and the well construction requirements are much stronger. Horizontal shale wells that contain the same gas, drill, and wastewater and are under much higher pressure have lower regulatory standards. Why is that? What are in these wells? Well, the gas, drill, and wastewater is what comes from these wells. We know that it contains water, sand, and potentially toxic chemicals. Yes, toxic. Regulators say that it's 99% water, so there's no reason to worry. Well, just last month, Pennsylvania's Head Resource Management Secretary, Mr. Hanger, stated, gas drilling wastewater is exceptionally polluted. It's nasty, nasty stuff. Here in Ohio, we don't test this nasty stuff that's shipped in from Pennsylvania or from Ohio when it goes into our injection wells. We don't test this nasty stuff as it's pumped into our open pits that we allow in Ohio. We don't test this nasty sludge that's left in the pits and then buried on site. Mr. Hager is not finished with his criticism. He goes on to say that the maximum fines that the environmental regulators can issue are way too low and that the bonds are scandalously low.